You have within you more resources of energy than have ever been tapped, more talent that has ever been exploited, more strength that has ever been tested, more to give than you have ever given. I left his office that day, inspired to step into the unknown. I guess I was a social entrepreneur, but the phrase didn't necessarily exist then. I was just following my trail. I was doing what I felt I had to do. Shortly thereafter, I announced I was stepping down as Bain's chief executive. We started the succession process. I left in the first quarter of 2000. Now, for those of you that pay attention to business, the first quarter of 2000 was a particularly hot time. It turns out, with hindsight, the market peaked then. This was the apex of everything was hot. All you had to do was have a business card and a potential of a website, and you were worth zillions of dollars. And here, I left this hyper-hot firm with kind of being in charge, and finally, most of my partners thought I was at least productive overhead, not just wasteful overhead. Finally, I started to know what I was doing. I left this to start a charity with 3 other people. And I left as an unpaid, full-time volunteer with the lofty title of chairman. I won't forget when I had 2 of my partners, close friends of mine, come into my Boston office, shut the door. They kind of looked somber after all this was announced. And they asked me, seriously, is your health okay? They thought I had received bad news from a doctor, and that's why I was shifting gears. I'd have people come up to me and say, gee, we heard you're retired, and I want to punch them. What do you mean retired? I'm going to work harder and do more important things than I've ever done in my life. I'm not retiring. I've been promoted. It just isn't an up and to the right promotion. So we launched this thing. And I kind of dove off the cliff. And about a year in, I was struggling again. Many of you in this room have done startups. You know nothing goes according to plan. Now, guess what? Consulting firm, consultants. We had thousands of PowerPoint slides. If there was one thing we had, it was a plan. But not everything was going according to plan. The business model wasn't exactly right. Fundraising, that's a different story. So I'm a year into this, and I start getting calls while things are bumping along, and I'm wondering what's going on, but I'm committed. But I started getting calls, and one call in particular I remember was from a headhunter out here saying, Mr. Tierney, introduces himself, and he starts this pitch about how he wants me to put my hat in the ring to run this hot internet company. And I wasn't having it, and finally he's yelling at me. This is not professional. He's yelling at me over the phone saying, you're an idiot. I thought this is, if he's trying to inspire me to put my hat in the ring, he's not working, but you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Why are you make some money and do the other, feel-good stuff later on? That was the same time I heard back from secondhand from someone I kind of respected at the time that was referred to my decision as, quote, the stupidest career move he'd ever heard. I started to get wobbly. Back I came to Stanford. Back I went into John's office. I know what you told me the first time, sir, but I just need another dose. Let me quote again his words written down as if they were from that day. Life is tumultuous, an endless losing and regaining of balance, a continuous struggle, never an assured victory. Nothing is ever finally safe. Every important battle is fought and refought. Learn all your life. Learn from your failures. Learn from your successes. When you hit a spell of trouble like this, ask, what is it trying to teach me? The lessons aren't always happy ones, but they keep coming if you let them. We learn by accepting the commitments of life, by playing the roles that life hands us, not necessarily the roles we would have chosen. The things you learn in maturity aren't simply things such as acquiring information and skills. You learn not to burn up energy in anxiety. You discover how to manage your tensions. You find the world loves talent but pays off on character. You find the world loves talent but pays off on character. I'll tell you, that gave me a boost like nothing I could have possibly received from anyone. I finally understood and accepted that this really was my journey. It was my trail. And that I was following my own path, no matter what. And I was going to be determined to be as thoughtful and seek out wisdom from John and many others. I was going to transcend this kind of up and to the right illusion. I was going to build a life, not a resume. Now, nothing's certain. And I just committed to that if I keep learning and keep trying, I'll be able to use whatever gifts I have. It was 2001. Let me fast forward to today. Let me tell you where we are in that story. But more importantly, let me tell you about Encore Careers and what I've learned. First of all, it's still work in process. I'll be better 10 years from now than I am now. I know now how much I don't know, and that's important. Bridgespan's gone from 3 people to about 180. An office in San Francisco and Boston and New York. And we're doing executive search, and we're doing consulting, and we're doing executive education, and we're doing all kinds of stuff, and we're learning as we go, and we've got a lot to learn. I'd give us a B. I'd give us an A for effort, a B for performance. We've got plenty of upside. It's incredibly exciting. Last year and this year, and the year before, actually, it was harder to get a job if you were coming out of a university like Stanford at Bridgespan than if you're at Bain & Company, even though our compensation system is radically different. It's a nonprofit compensation system. So some things that we've done well. One of the things we understood early on is that for a nonprofit organization to get results, it's actually a combination of strategy, capital, and talent. Think about it as 2 sets of resources, people and money, and a plan for putting those to work. Now, which is most important? It ain't strategy. Because if you have the right people in the right jobs and they're reasonably well capitalized, they'll figure it out. This is hard to say from a guy who spent 30 years doing strategy stuff. It ain't strategy. Is it money? Enough money is absolutely necessary. Not enough is a problem. Too much can be a problem. It is talent. Jim Collins calls it first who. Nothing matters more than first who. And as we launched Bridgespan, as Carol referenced, we began to see this phenomenon, these great nonprofit organizations not being able to build the capacity of those organizations, the human resource capacity. Lots of issues around that. One is that donors don't like to fund overhead, even when overhead is productive and you're not going to get output without the input. But we decided that we needed to help out on this issue of talent. And that led to the formation of BridgeStar and getting into executive search and start doing research around issues of talent and labor markets in the nonprofit sector. It led to something called the leadership deficit, which is relevant to everyone in this room today. We modeled the growth of the nonprofit sector historically and going forward, all these scenarios, and published a paper which has stood up now to scrutiny over the last 3 or 4 years, that suggested the nonprofit sector is going to need hundreds of thousands of new senior executives in the next decade. Seems to be true. We just updated the research last year. The number's actually bigger. Think about the nonprofit sector with a help wanted sign. And all of you that are starting to grow organizations need help. Well, guess what? That help can't come exclusively from within the sector. There aren't enough people. It has to come from Encore Careers, from other folks, from bridgers, we call them, that are new to the space. That was how we got involved with Civic Ventures. We found out what Mark and his colleagues were doing and said, my God, this is phenomenal. This is a partial solution to this help wanted need. And in 2006, I was privileged to become a Purpose Prize judge. And like all of us in this room, you don't need anything else to do. Nobody's looking for, gosh, I wonder what I'll do this afternoon. The list is pretty full. And yet when I got involved in the Purpose Prize and began reading about all of you, I thought, this is like John Gardner speaking to me. Here are these people that are courageous, that are stepping out in front, that are doing things to serve society, that really are walking the talk. It's not just about them. And I have to say, even this morning in the stories, amazing. And some of the Purpose Prize winners here today, Gary Maxworthy, Farm to Family Program in California Food Banks, or Sharon Rohrbach,